The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. The other day I found myself thinking about the differences between power and strength. And I thought it an interesting comparison. Well, I looked it up, power and strength, on the internet, and found that hosts of people have been talking about power and strength, thinking about power and strength and the differences between them. So I thought, oh well, I'll try something. Well, most of what they talk about is in the realm of physical fitness. Strength is the ability to move something, and power is the ability to move it quickly, for what that's worth, you know. Strength of materials, how much stress they can take, metal, fabric, wood, you know, how much pressure or stress can they take before they break, plus a host of other things. But I came across a really nice summary of the difference between power and strength, looked at in a different way. It says, you can have a world where everyone is strong, but not a world where everyone is powerful. For someone to be powerful, someone else must be powerless. Strength, however, resides within. I thought, perfect, perfect. Well, in our present world, of course, there have been lots of examples, vivid examples, of both power and strength. In social, political situations, we have seen them. Power means dominance and control over other people, and can be frightening and even violent, but it doesn't have to be. Power doesn't have to be frightening or violent, but it often seems to be. As they say, power can be intoxicating, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and there's reasons why they say that, you know. But strength, on the other hand, does not have to be cultivated at somebody else's expense. It's something we do for ourselves. It doesn't have to be active. You don't have to be actively, strongly doing something. It can actually be a not doing. Sometimes strength is not doing something, refraining from doing something or saying something, you know, not reacting to something. That can be a strength. Restraint or holding fast to something can be strength, but not getting out there and doing something. A person with strength can be comforting to other people, and a person with power may not be, or they can be. Well, it's not just that power is bad and strength is good. It's not that simple, you know. But we do need to be very, very careful with power. Those who have some power need to be really careful, take great care how they use it, how they treat other people, other beings. They have to watch their mind very carefully to purify their intentions, ideally, if you're a person with some power. Because power can be associated with great selfishness, and it can be used for good. Or we might think, I'm not a person with any power, but think. We have power over our animals. Humans have a lot of power over the animal realm. Parents have power over their children, teachers over their students, doctors over their patients. Patients trust them that they'll know what's right, you know. Monks over lay trainees. Many, many people over other people have some kind of power or dominance. And the abuse of power is the abuse of trust. As beings trust us, our pets trust us, and if they're abused, you know, you see an animal being ill-treated, you feel really heartbroken, actually. And with people, too, you see children being ill-treated, or the weaker being ill-treated at the expense of somebody. I mean, somebody being strong at the expense of somebody weak, somebody being powerful at the expense of somebody less powerful. Because the abuse of trust can do huge damage. The abuse of power is the same as the abuse of trust. So we need to take great care with how we treat other beings, whether we think we have any power or even strength or not. We all have to be careful how we treat another person. We just don't know what kind of effect we might have on somebody. We may think, oh, I'm just a weak little person, but we're not. any of us actually has the power to hurt somebody, and we have the strength to refrain. Undertaking spiritual practice. Sometimes people do this because they want spiritual powers. Sometimes, but not always, of course. But this is not a good motive because it's basically selfish. Well, the Buddha had considerable spiritual powers, but he didn't like to use them. He was very, very reluctant to use his spiritual powers. And when he did, it was only when he was kind of driven into it, and it was to help people. It wasn't for a self thing. It was to help people to develop faith in his teaching. Not faith just in him, but in his teaching, to help people, not for a selfish purpose. And he discouraged his disciples from using their spiritual powers. When one or two did, they get in trouble. There are very few people who just naturally have some spiritual powers. Not because they've cultivated them, they're just born with them. And they have to be extremely careful. Better not to use them at all, because it's very hard to be wise and kind and selfless with those kinds of things. So, sometimes people want to have power over other people. I'd like to be a big person, especially if I'm a rather little person. I want to be a big person. I want to be venerated and followed, and people to think I'm great and maybe give me money and stuff. We've seen lots of this in our lives. But most of us come to spiritual practice not because we want power, but because we're suffering and we want to find some help. And as we train in the Dharma, we gain strength, spiritual strength from our practice to face our difficulties and work on our suffering, deal with those things in our lives. But it's not a power thing, it's a strength thing, which is different. Well, at this time of turmoil and great suffering in our world, which we all know about, massive problems, we need strength. We all need strength. Strength of integrity and strength of purpose. As Buddhists, or just as decent human beings, to have strength to live our lives with integrity and with purpose. To sit still in the midst of the conditions of our lives. We might not feel suffering as deeply as somebody fleeing a war zone or fighting a battle or watching their children die of hunger. There's horrible things going on. But we still have our own suffering, and we're not separate from them. Other people suffer, we feel it too, it affects us. I think most of us have this feeling of kind of despondency about the war in Ukraine, for instance, as well as all the other stuff, as though it wasn't bad enough. Now we have a war, lovely. But it kind of really makes us, it can be discouraging, we can feel despondent about it all. And to have strength, to sit tight, as it were, to sit still with a bright heart of faith in the midst of that is not an easy matter. But that is our strength, to sit still in faith. And plus all our own problems. Everybody has suffering, loss, grief, fear, anxiety, despondency, all the rest. Everybody has suffering. It's not just the dramatic things. Everybody has that. Faith is the great strengthener, the great strengthener. In the midst of impermanence, in the midst of suffering, faith in that which does not change, which is not impermanent, that holds fast, that sustains us all, to take deep refuge in the three treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. This is our strength, to entrust ourselves to those three treasures and to hold out our faith to others. We don't have to tell everyone else they should be a Buddhist, but just to have that bright heart of faith that helps both ourselves and other beings. Whether people know what we're doing or not, just that faith in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, faith in the Buddha, that he was able to find and show the way to the end of suffering. And as I've said many times, they had all kinds of stuff in his time. They had wars and violence and hatred and all sorts of stuff. How do you deal with these things? He showed the way, the Dharma, his teaching, the Sangha, those who follow it, Faith in the three treasures. Refuge. They are a refuge. Something that does not move. That is something we can entrust ourselves to. A place of safety, and stillness. That's bigger than us. You take refuge in something bigger than yourself. And this brings great benefit to us and to other beings and to our world. Just sitting still with a bright heart of faith. Faith in the three treasures. Faith is that there is something basically good underneath everything. Something that sustains us all. Great compassion within which everything else takes place, no matter how bad it looks. Patience and acceptance. Patience in this Saha world, they call it a world of patient endurance, which sounds awful, but it is mostly. A lot of our life is just bearing it, enduring things, not in a hard kind of way, but softly, with acceptance, soft acceptance of things that come our way, to let them in, to embrace them really, the difficult things, the easy things, the things we like, the things we don't like at all those things that in our world, to allow them to be there, not to say, no, I don't want anything but that, or I can't believe this is happening. Well, it's happening. To accept it with patience, without turning away, without getting all caught up in worry and anger and fear and resistance. This shouldn't be happening, this isn't fair, but here it is. How do I deal with it? What do I need to do? Maybe I don't need to do anything. Maybe all I need to do is sit still, right in the midst of it, and do nothing. Just to accept as deeply as I can, with compassion, and offering merit. We had our merit ceremony, transfer of merit ceremony just now. Offering merit for beings. Offering kindness for beings. Offering the wish for their good for beings, and with compassion and faith and acceptance. Compassion for all beings, letting go of judgment, compassion for ourselves, knowing that we're all deeply connected, no matter what it looks like. We're not good people like me and bad people like them, or bad people like me and good people like them. It's the other side of it. We all have both. We all have both good and bad, positive and negative. We're all capable of great harm and selfishness. We're all capable of great kindness, generosity, selflessness. And knowing this, that we're actually not that different, and allowing compassion to arise, is a source of great strength. We have strength to face almost anything. I think I talked about this last time I did a talk. It gives us strength to sit still in the midst of all of it, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of pleasure, in the midst of joy, in the midst of happiness, in the midst of misery and woe, to sit still right in the middle of all of it, with compassion, and not get pulled off by anger and judgment and fear of what's going to happen and all that. To sit still and trust in the best. Trust that all shall be well. Fundamentally, all is well. We just may not see it. Keeping to the precepts, this can call for great strength. It is a source of strength that they guide us in our life. When we have a decision to make, I need to do such and such, how do I best keep to the precept? How do I not do harm? How do I cease from evil? How do I not do harm here? How do I do only good? How do I do good for others? And all the other precepts. But they all come out of those three. Ceases from evil, doing only good, doing good for others. To live by that is a source of great strength. And sometimes we need great strength in order to hold to that. Sometimes it's just really inconvenient to do the thing that's really good. We'd rather do the thing that's easy, or little self-seeking, or we're asked to do something, that really we don't feel good about. Can I actually say, I don't think I can do that? Sometimes it takes strength. Strength, not to just go along with everybody else is saying and thinking and doing. Everybody else is bad-mouthing somebody, whether it's somebody we know or somebody in power or something. Do we have to do it too? Maybe we can refrain and just offer merit and compassion for whoever it is they're complaining about. And people complaining because they do it because of suffering. People complaining about another person. You don't do it when you're completely happy. When you're completely happy, you love everybody. When you're wretched, you know, that's when you start complaining. So to see with compassion and not with judgment. Not keeping to the precepts as, I'm keeping to the precepts, I'm not joining in with this, not feeling superior, but just doing our best. Can we refrain from doing that which is not good to do? Fearlessness, the gift of fearlessness, not being pulled off by worry and fear. Sitting still in the midst of fear that arises, because everybody has fear, we all get afraid sometimes. But not letting fear run our lives, not letting it dictate everything we do, not giving into it all the time, endlessly thinking worried, fearful thoughts. To sit still in the midst of it, to see it for what it is, to face it head on, not run away from it. And to bestow fearlessness, that other beings don't need to be afraid of us, because we're trying to do our best. We're trying to live by the precepts. We're trying to sit still and preserve our strength of integrity and purpose in the midst of all the conditions of our lives. This gives great comfort, both to ourselves and to others, sitting still in the midst of a fearful situation, and it helps other people to do the same, other beings to do the same. When there's some, storm in our life, whether a physical storm or some other kind of turmoil, to sit still in the midst of it and allow fear to come and go, but not to be driven by it. This gives great comfort. It's a source of great strength for us and for others. We don't have to be some daring person doing deeds of daring do. We can just sit still. And that is a source of strength, and it calls for strength too. Because strength begets strength, and we strengthen our strength muscles, we get stronger, But there's not a power thing. It's just that strength that resides within. So to nourish our spiritual strength, to cultivate it in these ways, it is actually to be of great benefit, both to us, to those around us, and to our world, that just we sit still in the midst of all conditions, and let everything come and go, refraining from giving in to our greed, anger, and delusion, keeping to the precepts, practicing compassion and kindness, relinquishing judgment and hatred and anger and all that. Kindness both to ourselves and to others, compassion for ourselves and others, because it works together. I can't just be nice to somebody else and not practice a little kindness to myself, really. And above all things, to sit still in faith. Faith in that which underlies everything. Knowing that nothing lasts forever in this world, everything comes and goes, for the better or worse. Awful things come, and awful things leave us, and something else comes our way. Maybe better, maybe worse, we don't know. But to allow everything to come through, not to resist, push against things, but to let it all come through, and not to be pulled off our sitting place. That is where we sit still. One definition of strength is moral resistance, means not allowing ourselves to do that which is not good, that we know to be not good. That is a kind of strength. But we want to be careful, Am I actually right here, or am I just being pig-headed? But there can be a fine line. Sometimes it's good to be pig-headed. Sometimes it's better just to accord with conditions. But that strength is a strength that also bends, as we often say, the bamboo will bend, but the oak tree might get knocked over by the wind because it won't bend with circumstances. How can we bend while maintaining our integrity, our sitting place, our strength? There are so many different kinds of strength. You can tear fabric or not tear it. You can break something, you can shatter it, you can bend it. And can we be still and preserve our integrity and our strength in the midst of all the conditions of our lives? Everything changes all the time. It always has, it always will. That's the one thing that doesn't change is impermanence. We can entrust ourselves, entrust our world to that which sustains us, the unborn, the undying, the unchanging, as the Buddha talked about. In all the beings in this world, with all their situations, we're all embraced within this. We can all entrust ourselves, and all of us, all things, to that which does not change. This sustains us all. And that's our strength. And that's our talk for the day. Thank you.